Hello, my friends. Today I speak a message that it's not a message that hasn't already been heard, as nothing is new under the sun, but it's a message that most people will never hear, because most people will never actually believe or know who they are in the world and what the world is. You see, the world is a place which is like a heavy, dense fog. You can't see through it. And everything that is in this world is not as it seems to be. There is one light in this world, and that light was Jesus Christ, and still is to this day. But aside from that light, there is nothing. There is only darkness. And whenever you're walking around in the dark, you cannot see. Therefore, you're more likely to stumble and trip over something that is in your path than if you have a lantern and you are walking through the dark. In other words, the whole world stumbles around without a lantern, as those who have walked with God, we have a torch that lights our way. It's the only reason that we do not stumble into the same traps that the world stumbles into the same traps, and the Christians stumble into the same trap, and the Jew stumbles into the same trap. I've said this before, and I've said it many of times. If you want to see the year 2021, the year 2020, all you have to do is go back to the year 1930, 1931, 1932. You'll see one generation, 90 years, where one generation dies out and another one begins, going through exactly the same processes as nations over the world. If you want to go back to the time before the Holocaust, all you have to do is replace some names in the year 2021, and you will see the same exact thing happens. For instance, whenever we talk about vaccinations, I hear it all the time now where they're coming out against those who refuse to be vaccinated. They're making those of us who refuse that as subhuman. And then they've already begun blaming us for all of the economic problems and the struggles and all of the problems in the world now with COVID. And the reason we're all locked down is because not everybody's getting their vaccine. The reason we're still getting sick is because those people aren't getting vaccinated. If you go back 90 years ago, you'll see that the very same thing that they are accusing the unvaccinated as right now is exactly what they accused the Jews of doing in Germany. Which is why I've said the third Holocaust that comes, it's of not just Christians, but it's of everybody who will refuse to follow the progressiveness of the beast who will come and come again. It's a mindset, it's a state of being in rebellion against God, against the law, against everything that is good. It's loving lies and hating truth. All the different groups in the world may be named something different now, but it's still the same things it was then. And the same things that they will blame something for now has already been blamed on somebody else before, which is during the times of the Great Tribulation. Everything that happened to the Jews in the 1930s and 40s happens to all peoples who will not take the mark. This scripture that's on my screen, I'm sure you've all heard of it, as there are many watchmen in the world, and many watchmen who claim to be watchmen, and many watchmen who are many times correct with exactly how they're interpreting and seeing things in the world. But there's a difference between a watchman of the world and there's a difference between the watchman of Israel. Ezekiel was tasked as a watchman for Israel. A lot of people out there who call themselves watchmen, they don't know who they are. So they're certainly not a watchman for Israel, as if they were a watchman for Israel, they would know they're Israel themselves. But many times they don't. They believe they're a church, or they believe they're this or that. They neglect what Jesus actually came to do because they can't see who they themselves are. They believe in his name, but they're walking blind because they will not follow him. And there's many reasons to this, but the analogy that I used of walking through a dark room without a light, it's God who has placed those stumble blocks on the way. And the reason God has placed those stumble blocks along the way is so everyone at the end knows who they are. If you believe yourself to be of the church, and you believe yourself to be saved, and you believe yourself all of these things, that is what you are. You are. And what is the church? The church is a servant of God. And they will serve. In the times of the Great Tribulations, those of the faithful church will serve, and they will dine with Israel in heaven because they are the servants of God. But the watchman of the church, because he doesn't know he's actually a watchman of Israel, he doesn't understand things that truly matter in the end times when speaking about prophecy. The biggest one being the Jews currently residing in Israel right now. There was a land that had nobody in it, and it was given to them in 1948 by America and the United Nations. They all believe that this was God gathering together his chosen people to the land, the apple of his eye, and that they're now residing there. And for anyone who believes this, it's only because they have never understood what Israel is. I testify as Israel that we're still all over the world. God never brought us together yet. I'm here in America. I know someone in Canada. There's people in Africa that are part of Israel. God has not yet brought us all together. And it's very easy to understand this. In 1948, the reason behind giving the Jews their land, first off, it had to happen. It's the Antichrist that makes it happen, the spirit of him, in order to bring this confusion at the end of the time so people don't know who they actually are, and thus they're not escaping everything that is to come because they are looking at the wrong people. In 1948, the Jews were sent there by ship, by plane, by bridge, by ferry, by foot. They all went on that exodus, and they went there, and now today their descendants are the same people that went there back in 1948. There was not a single supernatural, divine intervention moment during the entire building of New Israel. Not one. Do you not believe that God does not directly intervene with those who are his chosen people? Did God need, I don't know, the Egyptians to build a bridge for Israel to go over? Did God require that? Or did God himself do something impossible by parting the sea and let them walk over the land? My friends, you know, when Israel is brought back together, that is the day that all of us who are spread out in the world are raptured to Jerusalem, so we can all say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And it's done not by airplane, not by any route of man, but it's done by God himself, lifting his rod and making it happen in a way that the world would call supernatural. When God directly intervenes, he doesn't directly use anybody to do anything. Sometimes it would be an angel who would act for God, but he doesn't use man in that manner, as man has no ability to do any of these things that are required. The apostles and the disciples that walked with Jesus all throughout the history, whenever man would miraculously heal another man, It wasn't ever that man that did it. It was the power of God through that man that brought the healing whenever it was impossible to be healed otherwise. Everything that happened in 1948 was possible to be done by man, and it's man taking credit for that works. Thus, all of the watchmen today who speak like this, they speak like the Jews in Israel or God's chosen people. They don't realize that they are the Jews. They are Israel. If only they would believe and accept it. If anybody looks at Israel today and says that that is God's chosen people, all you have to do is ask them, what piece of scripture do they not believe? We're at the very end right now, and that is what I blow the horn about. As a watchman for the people of Israel, as nobody else other than Israel that hears me speak in this recording that I'm making will believe what I'm saying or see any of it. It's only speaking to Israel. There's lots of earth watchmen out there, if you want to listen to those. Very few watchmen that actually speak as Israel. This warning that comes from me, it comes because I know Michael is about to stand up. The very last sign before the rapture is looking up in the sky and seeing the sign of the Son of Man coming, which is Jesus Christ himself with all of his angels. That'll be the sign the whole world sees. And then he will gather his elect from the four corners of the earth. Because notice at the end, he's not saying, well, I'm going to go to Israel and gather my elect. They're already there. I'm just going to go take them. He's saying my angels gather everybody from the four corners of the earth and take them up in rapture to the Son of Man, because there's a wedding that we have to go to at that time. Jesus said that there will be people who will say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, who will be right there in Jerusalem when he returns. But yet if you believe that the Jews were already done by God, given that land by God to fulfill all of these things, how would any of them say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? Because they don't believe in the name of the Lord, who is Jesus Christ. You can see it's all a conundrum, but it's stumble blocks that's put in front of the church to deceive them in their own minds into who they are. Blocked, stumble block, because they did not love the truth so much as to fall away from everything in the world, sell everything, and buy the pearl and walk with Jesus Christ. They love their praise, they love their traditions, they love all of these things. They love their interpretations, they love their words. But they've loved those things more than they've loved God, or they would know the very basic, simple of things. One, that the people of Israel were still scattered, and two, if you're a Jew, you believe not in the Son, and if you have not the Son, you have not the Father. Very, very simple things that cannot be interpreted any different, can't be messed up. And they will all say, well, that's not true. As God is watching over his people, he always has. I'm not disagreeing at all. He watches over me. No matter where I would be in the world, he has watched over me because I am Israel. If you believe that God is going to bring that remnant finally back together very, very soon, so that we will be there in Jerusalem for the coming of the Lord, but he will pull us supernaturally in rapture and take us there to witness that event, where he will then show the whole world that he has loved us. If you believe that the Jews are the one that is attaining to, then you're not a Christian. I'm not really sure what you would believe in then, because that's the entire premise of Jesus Christ, that he died, he was persecuted, he paid for everything that the devil would put you through yourself. He did it on the cross. He did it while he was being persecuted. He did it all in his own life, so that those ones at the end who would be Israel and brought back together would not go through those same things. It was his life for our life. And as a watchman for the people of Israel, I can blow nothing but a shofar. I can only blow a ram's horn. And I can blow the warning, and I can blow that the coronation is coming. And I can tell you that it is coming so very quickly. We're going to see Michael stand up. I don't even know what it's going to look like. I really don't. But I know something is going to happen, and it's going to happen very, very soon. And then, in the twinkling of an eye, we will be taken to the Son of Man in the air. And all of this is happening much, much sooner now than it ever has been in my walk before, just as the Lord said it would be at the times of the end. I say this because there's still time to see who you are, if only you would be willing to throw everything the world has ever taught you away, because the world is in darkness, and light the lantern. Receive the light of Jesus Christ, who is God, and actually walk with him over anyone else who you talk to. If you walk with Jesus Christ, you will know you are Israel. You are a Jew. You are a Gentile. You are a child of God. Because from the very beginning, you've believed everything that God said, including that he gave his one and only Son, not to condemn the world, but to save it. And through him, by believing in him, you will be saved. Matters of God and matters of man are different. This blowing of the horn is the warning that everything right now is going to speed up drastically. The Antichrist is soon to take his spot. And I even believe I know who it is. But I'm still walking that in the moment. I can't be absolutely certain of it. Until I'm absolutely certain of it, I'm going to remain here, and I know that there's still time to throw away everything you know in the world, to sell it, and to buy Jesus Christ, buy the wine that doesn't expire. There's still time. But you must not listen to the watchmen of the world, because they lead you astray. You must not listen to the watchmen of the church, because they lead you astray too. If anyone you listen to a watchman of the people of Israel, because those are the ones who are the apple of God's eye. And they do not deceive you. They say and speak only what they know, and they only know what they know from God. They get things wrong all the time, but it's only because they're too young to understand things, until they get a little bit older and eventually do put things together better. That's the moment that I sit here in my life where I can really see everything playing out, the scriptures 100% playing out just like Jesus said they would, just like the prophets said they would. And it's all ready to happen. There's nothing else left. But if you don't believe you are Israel, if you call me a liar and you say, no, in 1948, God made that happen, how else could it happen? I urge you to go back throughout the scriptures and see that whenever God directly intervenes on something, he does something that Pharaoh's people cannot reproduce. Everything that happened in 1948, it was done by 1948 technology. And we could still do everything that happened in 1948 right now today. There wasn't a single event in which something was done that could not be replicated by Pharaoh. In other words, the United States government. Whenever the rapture happens, whenever I'm lifted up into the air, and all of those who also know they are Israel lifted up in the air and we're gathered together, there won't be nothing Pharaoh will be able to do that can replicate that. When you see something that you cannot understand to happen any other way other than it's got to be God that did it because mankind can't, when you see that event happen, you know it was God who stepped in to rescue, God who stepped in to intervene. And unless you see that, you saw nothing. And I tell you that the moment that we're all waiting for, all of Israel is waiting for, to go back home, to have the wedding ceremony, and then to go with the Lord wheresoever he shall go as the world plays on, That moment is coming so very quickly. And I can't tell you how much, every single day it's coming even quicker. Just like Jesus said, he does not tarry. Whenever it's coming, and you're going to know it. Just like the ending of birthing pains leads to the birth. It's coming so much more quickly now than it ever has. There is still time to believe God. Throw everything you know away. Throw everyone you've ever talked to away. And say, God, show me. Show me. I want to hear it from you. I don't want to hear it from anybody else anymore. I don't want to hear it from this random guy I'm listening to, even in this video as I speak to you. Some guy who claims himself as Israel and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it from him either. Ask God to show you these things, as you won't believe me unless you believe God first. And the only way you believe God is if you throw everything in the world away and walk with him. This warning I give to the people of Israel as a watchman of the people of Israel, something I never really even knew that I was, but there's no other way I could describe it. I'm speaking to people who also are Israel. That's who I know God has united me with in the end. If you remain wicked, the blood will be on your hands. And how does one remain wicked? They continue doing the same things they are. There's no blood to pay for your sin because you reject the blood that is the salvation. If you believe God's going to save the Jews, you're absolutely right. But remember, there is neither Jew nor Gentile. There hasn't been for 2,000 years. The Jews have just become other peoples, mixed peoples, peoples of all kind of names. But you can bet that God knows every single one of them, and that they know him, and that they all would be saying the same thing that I am by this time. The church does not know God because they worship their own traditions more than they do him. They think Israel, the Jews that are there now, that's God's chosen people. The whole time never realizing or understanding it's been them who's God's chosen people. The rapture, the event that they speak about all the time, that they keep waiting for, it is coming, and even they know it. But here's the problem. It's not coming for them. It's only coming for Israel. As only Israel has believed from the beginning till the end every commandment of God. It's only Israel that can say that. The church, they will go through the tribulations, and many of them will be made spotless by the end of it. But that's not the same thing as right now. Right now, there is an opportunity for you to go separate from that path. And the only way there is to believe who you yourself are. That you are Israel, and that you are waiting for God to rescue you and to join you with others just like you. That's the warning I have for you as a watchman of Israel. That time is coming so very quickly. Make sure your house is in order, and make sure you know who you are before that day comes. Because if you're looking at somebody else to be that person, you're going to miss out on that wedding ceremony. You need to believe and understand that God has loved you more than anything else in this entire world, and that you have loved him too. It's a reciprocating relationship. That's what a marriage is. And that when he returns, there's going to be a wedding that day, and it's going to happen in Jerusalem. Wherever we are in this world, we're all going to be taken right to Jerusalem. We're going to appear as ghosts walking around there. We're going to go missing in the world. Just like what happened on the resurrection of Christ. But that's only a day. That's only a wedding. A wedding ceremony is very quick. It's here a moment, gone the next. But if you want to be in that ceremony, then you better be dressed for it. And the only way you know you're dressed for it is if you're actually there, waiting in line, standing to get your clothes and being brought inside. And the only way you get inside is if you believe the covenant, which is Jesus Christ. and that his persecution meant you didn't get persecuted. His execution meant you don't get executed. His love meant that you are saved. As a watchman of Israel, I can proclaim, finally, Christ is coming. He's coming so very quickly. There's very few, if anything, left to be accomplished before he comes. Something's going to happen where Michael is going to stand up and the Antichrist is going to be made known. And then that's it. That's the very last of the signs before the Son of Man appears and takes his flock with him as his 4 angels gather the elect from the corners of the earth. And they take us to Jerusalem, where we will celebrate and party while the rest of the world enters into the greatest tribulation that will ever be known to man. Know who you are, my friends. Know that you are God's chosen people. And you're only God's chosen people because you have believed in the Son. And you have saw the works of the world and know that the works of the world can be performed by Pharaoh's magicians, but the works of God cannot be duplicated. And realize and understand that the world produced the works that is a lie. That must mean that God hasn't done his works yet. It must mean we're still waiting for it. And that's why we're still waiting on the rapture, because it hasn't come yet. He has not brought Israel back together. Israel, the actual people who believe in Jesus Christ, we're not together yet. But we will be very soon. Very, very quickly. And that's the warning. Know who you are. Be a child of God. Follow the covenant. And throw away everything else in the world who you know they have lied to you, even though they haven't meant to lie to you. These people that are speaking like watchmen now, they will probably, most of them, a lot of them, end up being saved through the great tribulations. That is our people. But the way out of that, the way out of those tribulations, is to believe in the works of the Son of God before you see his sign coming up in the stars in the heavens. And the only way you're going to see that sign and know who you are is if you're made ready for it before he comes, if you're actually waiting for him. And he has come only for the children of Israel, just as he said. God saved the whole world. He saved the woman, just like the dog eats the crumbs from the master's table. He saved her, but he didn't come for her. He came for Israel. He came for Israel, and he's coming again for Israel. And if you believe that those living in Israel now are the ones he's coming back for, then what part of the scriptures have you not believed? What part of the covenant do you reject? He's coming back for Israel, and Israel is anyone who believes in the Son of God, Jesus Christ. And if you are he, you are who he's coming back for, and you will go and meet him in the air. Any other way is a way that is not God's. And he will prove this to you by the unmistakably irreversible, cannot be duplicated things that you will see at that period of time. It's coming, my friends. It's coming. And we will say on that day, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And then we will follow him wherever he shall go after that. And it's coming very quickly. Look at the things in the world happening. The watchmen of the world know all about it. They're right. But there is a better way than going through the tribulations. And that way is knowing who you are before it comes. God bless.